Hey everybody, and welcome to Ron's Computer Videos. This evening what we're going to do is we are going to make good on a long time promise that I've made, and that is to better cover exactly how you get some of the more popular sort of PRODOS games and stuff working on your Apple IIe card. It took me a long time to kind of figure out the right set of tools that I needed to actually do this. And it was very, very frustrating for a long time. And I will tell you what, I tried everything. I tried going over a null modem cable and using ADT Pro to try to write all the information to the PRODOS partition. I tried burning a CD and then mounting the image and then trying to copy things off that way. I tried everything, and I will tell you what, it turns out it's way simpler than kind of what I thought it was. So hopefully this will be some good information for everybody. So as Joe says, warm up the Apple IIe card, it's time. Okay, well, maybe it's not something Joe would say, but it sure sounds like something he would say. Anyway, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna go through on my let's start at the top. My Mac LC3, which was very kindly donated by Geek with Social Skills. Thank you, Sean, that was very kind of you, to be a test bed for all of this. Just because trying to do this on the Color Classic or like an original LC, oh my gosh, it is just a exercise in testing your patience. So this is, to me, a really great 030 based Mac to do this type of project on. So it's what I chose, and that's what we're going with. So, all right, let's go ahead, and we've got our Apple IIe card already installed, but what we're gonna go ahead and do is I'm going to do this sort of from the perspective of you're setting this machine up for the first time. So you need to install an operating system, get all your drivers and everything installed, get your drives partitioned, things like that. But for the sake of making this a video that is not 19 hours long, I am going to use my SD to SCSI 5.5. So that's the version that it's like for the, little Macs like this that plugs in the rear port. I've got this disconnected, but it's just sitting there because, that's where I like it. So anyway, I'm gonna use that as our test bed for all of this. Now, the way that this is set up is you really just need some kind of drive. And if you do not have my unique setup, probably having a CD-ROM drive is going to be super helpful for doing all the rest of this. So I will give you a parts list, and we'll put that up here on the screen of things you need to get started. And let's begin. All right, let's go ahead and let's take it as read that I have an optical drive that has the legacy software recovery CD that has sort of all the old versions of the classic Mac operating system. You can download it out on Macintosh Garden, link somewhere here. So go ahead and get that downloaded, get that on a CD, however you can best get it to your Mac that you're going to set up, and you're going to want to boot from it. Now, if your drive is already set up and partitioned, that's okay. But again, we're just going to start as if you're doing this from Jump Street. So go ahead and boot from the CD, and we'll be back in a second when the machine's booted up. Okay, I sure hope that I have everything lined up where it's easy for you to read and to kind of see the screen. I'm going to eventually buy a VGA capture device, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I need the new tripod. So, all right, so let's go ahead and begin. Now, what we have just done is we have booted from the legacy recovery CD that you can get out on Macintosh Garden, and I have a few extra tools that will make this job much, much simpler. And those tools are For me, I'm going to need the patched version of HDSC, just because I am using a SCSI to SD, and that will not work with the Apple program. So make sure that you have one that is appropriate for the drive you're using. You probably also want to have a copy of Disk Copy, which does come on the Legacy Recovery CD, so that'll be really easy to get. You might also want to check the garden for a copy of Stuff It Expander, something that probably doesn't require an install. Let's be nimble. So just something that you can copy over and use rather easily. You probably also want to have a copy of SCSI Probe, just in case something goes wrong. And there is a great program, and I remember this from back in the day, and this was the game changer, folks. This is what fixed me up. And Creator Changer basically allows you to change the type and creator for files. So that's what makes it easy to get these PRODOS images mounted so that you can actually copy the data off of them. So, okay, well, we're gonna put PRODOS images on a drive, right? So, well, you can't exactly image the drive, but you can open these two things up once you get your drive that's gonna be your destination prepared and get your stuff copied over. So what you can do is you go out online, find yourself a copy of Total Replay. I'm gonna use the 4.01, which is one of the newer versions. It's got some fixes and some additional games. That's kind of fun. And I also have another file here that you may not be super familiar with. This is a prepared PRODOS image that ships with the Microdrive Turbo. So when I got back into the Apple II stuff, I bought a Microdrive Turbo because I started pricing the SCSI cards, and I was like, say what? So I used this for a while, and this is kind of nice. It's PRODOS, but it's got a lot of utilities built in. It's got like ADT Pro, and it's got Bitsy Buy and all those type of things. So that way that you can just boot this thing up, and you can it's got a ton of great utilities. So just right out of the box, a lot of the heavy lifting is taken off of you in terms of getting your Apple II set up. Now, why? I want to run Total Replay. I don't want to run this other thing. Well, the problem is this. Total Replay does not use PRODOS in the way that you might think that it does. As a matter of fact, the Total Replay disk the Total Replay image uses a loader that does not comply with PRODOS standards for it being something that could just load off of a drive. So, and not just that, but the Total Replay image is bigger than the largest PRODOS partition that you can create for like a drive. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a position where we've got to figure out maybe what can be jettisoned off of the Total Replay disk to fit. Now, lucky for us, it's just some demo files. So it's nothing that we're really gonna miss. If we're gonna boot this up and we're gonna play it, then we're good to go. So let's go ahead and let's get the ball rolling. And if you don't want to use that thing from the Microdrive Turbo, you can always go out and download whatever PRODOS, the newer version of PRODOS that you want. And if it's got Bitsy Buy built in, so like the file manager, then that makes your life a lot easier. All right, so first things first, let's say that you have a brand new drive and you need to set it up. Well, we are gonna have to set up some PRODOS images too for all of our stuff that's gonna end up being our destination drive. So due to my understanding, I believe that this is true. And if I am wrong, let me know in the doobly-doo. But the limit for PRODOS partitions on a Mac formatted hard drive is 2. You can have 2 PRODOS partitions. So if you want to have a bunch of different things that you can actively use on the fly, then that just means adding additional drives. So we will go ahead and I have on my SCSI to SD, I've got a secondary drive set up, so that way that we could play around and do everything fresh. So it's on SCSI device 5. Let's go ahead and initialize the drive. And yeah, go ahead and initialize it. All right. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is we can just say, okay, that's fine, because we're gonna undo all this here in just a second. So, all right, we're gonna go to partition, and then we're gonna go to custom. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove that partition that we just created there. So let's go ahead and let's click out in here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a Macintosh volume. And this is like a 1 gigabyte partition, but what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna say 512, Whoop, sorry, I guess you gotta actually type in 12. So we're gonna make it about half the size of the actual maximum for this like virtual drive. All right, so now we've got our little Mac partition back again, and we'll put our operating system and any kind of tools we need on there. And now let's go ahead, and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make some PRODOS volumes. Now keep in mind, the maximum file size for a PRODOS partition is like 32 megabytes, so 32,767K, because you can't run all the way up to the edge of that. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna let it be the max size. Remember, PRODOS partitions can't start with a number. Again, I believe that that's true. So we're gonna call this, I guess I should learn to type, PRODOS A, because we're gonna redo these here in a minute, so it don't really matter what we call them. All right, so let's get our other partition. Now, why are we making 2 partitions? Well, again, you're gonna need a place that's gonna be your boot drive, the Smartport bootable drive, so that way that you can do all these other fun things without having to swap a million floppies. So that size is great. PRODOS B. And there we go, we have our 2 partitions. Now watch what happens if I click out here. Nerp, nerp, nerp. No more options for additional partitions. So, or at least for PRODOS partitions. So we're done there, that looks good. Now keep in mind the recovery, or the legacy recovery disk does not have drivers built in for the reading PRODOS partitions, so you're not gonna see them right now, don't freak out. And now this is the point where we're gonna go ahead and install the operating system. So we will roll that video now. So let's go ahead, from the recovery disk, we're gonna go ahead and install our operating system. Now remember that the Apple IIe software, the Apple IIe Card software requires that 32-bit mode be turned off. So what we are going to have to do is we're going to have to pick a version of the operating system that does not have 32-bit locked on. That means that macOS 7.6 and up won't be compatible. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a System 7.5 install here real fast. And don't worry, when things start rolling, we will be on the fast forward in no time. So doing the net install of this is pretty handy, just because with the legacy recovery CD, it'll go ahead and mount all of our disk images for us. And most of the time, it's smart enough to even run the installer for us. So we will go ahead and we will get System 7.5.5 installed, and we will meet right back here. All right, y'all, we got System 7.5.3 installed. We're gonna go ahead and reboot at this point, just to go ahead and then do the 7.5.5 upgrade, and then we're gonna go ahead and install the Apple IIe software, and then we'll reboot one last time, and then we are ready to start kind of getting those PRODOS partitions ready. So as you saw, I went to Startup Disk, and I made sure that we're gonna go ahead and boot off of our drive that we've got prepared. Close that out, and let's restart. All right. We just have to be careful here, just in case it goes through. We're not gonna rebuild it on that CD there. That'll take forever. I was gonna say, it's possible sometimes you'll end up where you'll boot up and these drives kind of aren't in good shape for being able to be read. You may not have, if it doesn't load the extension or something for PRODOS volumes, but 7.5.5's pretty much got it going on. So let's go ahead and we're gonna do that. .7.5.5 update, and then we are going to install the latest version of the Apple IIe compatibility card. Oops. Can't be found. So That's okay. That is why. Oh yeah, those pesky. That's where that folder lives, so that's probably why it's doing that. All right, so we have got our installer. Maybe it will go ahead and do it automatically. We shall see. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get 755 installed and we'll meet right back here. Okay, we were able to get 7.5.5 installed, which does require a reboot, so we're back from that. Now let's go ahead and let's make sure that we have the final latest version of the Apple IIe Card software, which is 2.2.1. So let's go ahead and we'll need to probably drag this back over to disk copy again. Okay, let's go ahead and get our software installed. Hey, what do you know? All right, so we now have all of our software installed to be able to run the Apple IIe Card, and we also have the partitions and everything created, so we're looking good. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to go ahead and do now is we are going to reboot, so that way that we've got all of the software for the IIe Card loaded. And then we will give it a try. Okay, we're back. We've got the Apple IIe Card software installed. We've got 7.5.5 installed. That's all looking good. Went ahead and rebuilt the desktop files on those, so that way that we would end up with something closer to probably what you'll see at home. And let's just make one last check. We got to make sure that 32-bit addressing is turned off. And it was on, so let's go ahead. And I think by default that'll be on. So let's reboot one last time. Okay, and here we are back at the desktop. So we've got our two partitions. Let's make sure that those are the correct size. Sometimes things go awry. And you should see 31.9 megabytes. That looks good. That looks good. All right, so what we're going to do is we have our two image files. Now I wonder what'll happen. They right now don't appear to have a creator or file type. Let's drag one over to disk copy and see what happens. Well, it actually mounted the image. So what happens if that doesn't work and you get an error message there? Well, that's where Creator Changer comes into play. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we'll launch the 68K version of Creator Changer. Let's go ahead and let's go out to the Tools directory. Let's take a look at like Total Replay, for example. What you're going to want to see here for the creator type is it's wrap is the creator, and the file type is HDRV. You want to go ahead and make sure that your files reflect that creator and file type. And that's what will make them, oh well, I guess I just need to cancel. And that's what will make them able to be mounted with disk copy. So let's go ahead and we're going to open up, we're going to take our image, we're going to drag it over to disk copy. And what we want to do is that PRODOS A volume, we're going to take our the PRODOS boot disk from the microdrive turbo, and we're just going to select all, and we're going to drag the files over. And I will tell you what, this is going to take a while. It might take an hour, just depending on the speed of your drive and you know, how you're feeling that day. So we will let this go ahead and copy. It's going to take a little while, and we'll check back on it here in just a minute. All right, there you have it. We're in the home stretch on copying our PRODOS drive over, our PRODOS boot drive over. And so we've got all of our files over there. Now, again, you don't have to use the exact image that I used. I'm just saying that it's really, really handy. And I'll have a link in the description of where you can download it. All right, so there's our first one. So now we just have to worry about total replay. So we'll drag it over to disk copy. All right, and we're done with the tools folder. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is you want to copy the contents of the total replay disk over to, or the image over to your other PRODOS partition. And I will tell you right now, again, because of the jiggery pokery that went into making total replay, they actually have more data packed on that image than what can really be on a PRODOS partition. So how do you get around that? Well, you got to make a little bit of a sacrifice. And again, like I said at the top of the video, you want to copy everything from the total replay disk with the exception of the directory labeled demo. But what we're going to do, because this takes it over the edge in terms of space, but we don't really need the demo files if we're not going to let it run the demo when it plays games. So the easy way to do this, go out on your PRODOS drive where you're going to copy all of this, and just to make sure that we don't run afoul of any sort of directory checks, we're going to make a directory called demo. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select everything on our drive. We're going to deselect the demo directory on that image. And we are going to drag and copy it over. And again, this will take a little while. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're getting to the end of the line here on copying total replay over to our PRODOS partition. And we are almost ready to give this a try. So as soon as this finishes up, there's one last thing that I like to do just for housekeeping's sake, and that is to rename the partitions to kind of reflect what we're doing with them. So we have our PRODOS partition, we have our partition that has total replay on it, that's great. So let's go ahead and let's launch the IIe software. All right, so in the menu, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that we've got our Smartport devices set up. By default, it's SOM, so that looks good. Looking here in our slots, we can leave this all the same, or you can reconfigure this however you see fit. So let's go ahead. There's our PRODOS in the first one. Let's restart. Hey, it's Bitsy Bye. All right. So now we can go through and you can hit Tab to change to different Smartport volumes or even floppies if you do have your cable and some drives hooked up. But I'm going to go through, and here on the total replay partition that we have set up, we're going to launch launcher.sys, and there you go. Hey, it's total replay, and it booted, and we didn't have to have a floppy. We didn't have to jump through any additional hoops to make this work, so I'm impressed. Now, you'll notice by the number of games on the screen, it's not going to show the full complement just because I don't have a joystick hooked up right now, but there are quite a number of games you can play just out of the box. So hopefully this helps people that were kind of like, I don't know, to maybe try to figure out how you can kind of do this on your own so you can just get in there and start playing with total replay on your IIe card. So anyway, I'm going to play some Conan and finish out the evening. And I want to thank everybody for kind of sticking around, because oh my gosh, it takes forever to copy this stuff. So, but anyway, if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. And like I always say, Apple II forever.